That's enough for that's enough for the quorum? Is that enough for the quorum?
Yes, we have 3 online with us right now.
Okay, so hey. Is Jennifer on the line?
No,
No, she's not at the moment, but
Uh,
Appel and McBride are joining now.
okay. I'm gonna ask that, do we have, since this is amended, community development, meeting, I'm gonna have to carry a motion with that to add that one to the agenda that's already added.
If the agenda was amended 24 hours before the meeting, which I believe it was, I think you're good to go.
Okay, that's fine. That's all I need to know. If we're ready, we can get started. Well, we have it not, so I would like to call the amended Community Development Committee meeting to order. The time now is 3:02. And the first thing we're gonna have on is the invocation. Let's bow our head for silence. Thank you. Amen. Then we have public participation. I think we have 2 individuals.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
I have the first one signed up as Anthony Bryant. Mr. Bryant, if
Okay.
you're with us online, you can press *6 to
I would
speak.
give them just give them a minute and a half.
All right, and you have a minute and a half.
All right.
This is Anthony Bryant.
Yes, Mr. Bryant.
Yeah, good. Well, I wish the mayor was on. I was at Charleston County Council meeting. Looks like a goal for the TIF district. There's going to be a lot of pressure on this committee and on our community. I'm looking at my tax bill now, City of Charleston, Trident Tech, Parks and Recreation, CCO operation, county government operation, and business license. And I want to get my taxes deferred. If and so I was at Barbara Melba's meetings yesterday as well. And it's a go. She's at the union. They asked about the union peer situation. He says it's a go. And they're not worrying about it's going to get done in November. So it's a done deal. So the question becomes, this committee is going to have a lot of pressure on it as far as demands from the public, in particular me. It's something called IRS 2109, right? Let the mayor understand this. If the wrong name and number is given to your bank, South State Bank, it'd be given to law enforcement. So I was told my name by the governor is given to law enforcement, local, county, state, and federal law enforcement. And you know and I know, Councilman Mitchell, I'm nothing but an activist. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
All right, the next person we have signed up to speak is Carol Jackson.
Good afternoon. I'm Carol Jackson. I live out on James Island on Patterson Avenue. I'm here today in support of the item that you are considering funding for the 275 Hugie Street redevelopment owned by Charleston Housing Authority. Most of you know that I am a new member of the authority's trustees on the commission, and I'm here to basically just sort of set a little background for the city's involvement or the housing authority's involvement in work that the city has been doing around the east side in particular. I know that a lot of the committee members are newer to the council or weren't in office when we made some decisions that involved the long-awaited Hugie Street pump station at the corner of King and Hugie. And now that project has become an exemplary one that will provide rain-catching basin in the whole way that we've been trained as a community to live with water, as well as provide all of the stormwater drainage management design that was begun way back. And the Housing Authority has willingly dedicated their land to the house for the pump station, as well as all of the rain catching solutions that will be presented there. The other thing that was done many years ago, and hopefully will continue on in good order, is what I call the building blocks for the low line. So there's going to be an apartment property, as you all know, and the Housing Authority has willingly dedicated 13 permanent project-based vouchers that will stay with the property in perpetuity, as well as all of the easements that are necessary to provide parking and access during the whole phase of construction and early occupancy of the property. So those are just two ways that we can say, you know, the two entities have always worked together, and we'll look forward to keep continuing that. Thank you.
Thank you, former Councilman Jackson.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Councilman Gregory.
I think what's happening at Hugie and King is monumental, especially for those council members who are not familiar with the area. And I do think it is an example of a partnership that is going to make a tremendous difference in terms of livability for those neighborhoods. And if you've not seen the renderings are, it's going to be an unbelievable addition to, I think that's your district, Councilman.
Yes, it is.
But it would have been really good if we had some type of groundbreaking. Okay, this is what, a $20-something million project, I think, and it's sort of well underway. I just think that it's due a story because it is going to be unbelievable in terms of the quality of life that it will provide to us. And I'd like to thank the Housing Authority.
I'll make a quick comment on that. I'd like to thank the Housing Authority also for giving us that parcel to build a pump station. And most of the council members who was here before would remember that former Councilman James Lewis and myself, we fought for that a long time. But that area that was flooding so long, and like I said, I lived right here 39 years, right near Hugie Street. And this was a really bad area for the longest, even before I moved here. And we were pushing for that ever since he was here at the time. And because we represent one part of King. He is on the west side, I'm on the east side of King. And this was a tragedy a long time ago. So I would like to, just thank the Housing Authority for giving us the opportunity and giving us the property to be able to do that. One time we were supposed to do a press conference there that never materialized. And that's before they started even the building. The press conference would have been done, letting everyone know that we got this money and be getting ready to proceed. But that never took place. So I don't know what happened with that, but they're working now on it. So we can just glad they're going forward with it, because that part of it never been done. But we was going to do a press conference prior to the start of the work, if you may, at the time. But it's going now. So I watch it every day. So I'm happy to see it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just regarding the press release or a groundbreaking, I do believe we have one tentatively set up. We'll confirm with the exact date and time that's being proposed, and certainly circulate it to everyone on council. But I do believe that is being contemplated, just as an FYI.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was saying. I said we are projecting a press conference prior to they started working, let the people know what was going to take place before they started, and that we received funding for it. And that was supposed to have been done prior to all this happening, but that didn't materialize. So we are going to meet, after the fact, but as long as it's going to get done, just let the people know that this is what's happening, and we received the money and we are going forward with it. But moving right along, we have item number B, approval for minutes for the September 19th, 2024. May I have a motion, please?
Move for approval.
Second.
Right, moving second, off vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, ayes have it. We have nothing under number C, old business. We're going on to new business. New business is an ordinance to amend 7-14 of the Article 1, Chapter 7 of the Code of the City of Charleston, South Carolina, to allow voluntary appearances before the Livability Review Board and update division names and titles.
Councilman Dan Riccio here was going to speak and present on behalf of our section. Just to refresh your memory as council, this original ordinance was passed in March of 2023. Since that, we've had some organizational restructuring to address in the ordinance, and also in addition to the ordinance to include voluntary compliance to the board. So the purpose of the Livability Review Board is to provide expert guidance to the owners of these vacant structures with the goal of facilitating necessary resources to expedite the rehabilitation of those vacant structures. So it's a 5-member board. We have with 2 alternates. We have 3 staff. The staff members are represented by the BAR, Community Development, Building Inspections, Fire Marshal, Livability, and we also have 3 civilian board members, one of which is a probate attorney in Charleston, a neighborhood representative, and also a contractor that is an expert in historic preservation. So briefly, the goal of this this board is to provide just what we said. We bring them to the table. We give them the information they need to help them along with the challenges that they face when they're trying to rehab their properties. Predominantly, most of them are heirs properties, and there's a lot of struggles and financial struggles to accompany that, to get these houses rehabbed. Early on, is basically implied that the board was definitely voluntary, but it was not explicitly stated in the ordinance. This did cause some confusion to folks who were apprehensive about wanting to volunteer. So the 3 ways you can attend this board is voluntary process. You're referred to by the court, by the livability court, or referred to by city staff, which we are updating as referring officials in this ordinance. So I'll start with Section A, Livability Review Board, subsection 5. So what we're doing is striking the referring officials as formerly the Director of Livability and Tourism and the Director of Planning and Preservation and Sustainability. Now will include the board as the Section Chief for Community Service being myself, and the Section Chief for Planning, Permitting, and Engineer, which is Tim King. So what we've also just made corrections or amended the item 7 to include those changes. And also in item B for hearings under referring officials, just to keep up and up on that ordinance. Now, Section C is new for voluntary appearances for the board. So that's in front of you now with one correction. I think Magali may chime in, but in Section B, it refers to as Community Services Division and Planning and Permitting Engineering Division. Those will reflect as sections because that's what they are at this point. So with that said, are there any questions regarding this amendment?
Will the individuals be able to come before the board?
Oh, yes. We actually had 2 families come forward today. We had a board meeting, which they're going quite well. It's giving folks the opportunity to meet with our probate attorney that's volunteered for this process, get expert guidance from our contractors. And also the important part of it, now we have this non-punitive board that can guide these folks through the BAR process, what they have to do to get a building inspecting permit and any other questions they have, especially with community development. That office provides funds and grants for individuals trying to rehab their property for the purpose of affordable housing. So it's been very successful. It's been very positive and widely received. So it's quite an achievement on, especially Amy Sutherland, who is our deputy director, who's been spearheading this process.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other questions from any community members? No questions?
Move for
We-
approval?
And if I may
Oh,
interject to
sorry.
follow up on Dan's point, we would request an amendment on the floor for the second subsection under C to refer to section as opposed to division, and for those three subsections under C to be numerated 1, 2, and 3 instead of A, B, and C.
Very good catch.
Okay, so you move for approval with the various changes they're talking about, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, it was moving second. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposes? Ayes have it. So we're moving right along to item number 2.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We have a presentation for the consideration of funding to support 275 Hughie Street, Charleston, by the Charleston Housing Authority. And I think Mr. Nix, I think he's here online. I think he's going to do a presentation.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. Most of y'all know me. I'm Pete Sherman.
You can
Can you
stand.
turn your volume up?
Closer.
You turn the volume. We need some more volume a little bit. Can't hardly hear.
Again, I'm Pete Sherman. I'm with the Housing Authority, City of Charleston. I've been with the Housing Authority for getting close to 20 years now, mostly as a CFO, more recently as the Director of Development. So right now I'm wearing both hats. Just a short background on 275 Hughie. It's 12 public housing units. They were built in '81. I appreciate the conversation before about the pump station. It's about a half a block away from this site. The view that you have now on your screen is actually from Hughie Street. The neighboring land to it is also donated by the Housing Authority. It was originally part of Grant Homes. You may be familiar with Grant Homes, which is right on Meeting Street, old white brick buildings. And we are also contributing additional project-based vouchers. So with this is a RAD conversion. There'll be 12 project-based vouchers that go along with the conversion with the original 12 public housing units, and we're contributing an additional 40. So we got a lot in this, right? We're contributing the land, the neighboring land, $1 million, and the additional project-based vouchers. So we started this project in 2020, back when old Don Cameron was still around, and we put out an RFP for a development partner. We got 4 responses, and one of which was Ray Nix and Ward Mungo. And Ray Nix was chosen along with Mr. Mungo, and Ray is here to go through the rest of the slide deck.
Good afternoon. I'm a little low tech, so just be patient with me as we go through this. Good afternoon, Chairman Mitchell, council members, and Mayor. It is great to be here. I'm Ray Nix, founder and president of Nix Development. I am joined by my co-development partners, Ward Mungo from Ward Mungo Construction, and Catherine, and obviously we have Art here in addition to Pete from the Housing Authority. Again, we're truly pleased and blessed to be here before you this afternoon to brief you on 275 Hughie, on our progress, on on our needs, but most of all to talk about how we can ensure additional long-term affordability for the residents of the city of Charleston. So 275 Hugie, I mean, Pete basically stole all my thunder with what we had talked about presenting today as far as background, but I wanted to kind of cast the vision that Ward and I picked up on when the Housing Authority put out the RFP. We were selected in 2021, and in our first kickoff meeting, I actually went back to grab the notes. I had underlined world-class mixed income community of choice. And that was kind of the charge that we were given as a development team to pursue this opportunity at 275 Hugie. CHA clearly realized that, excuse me, told you I was low tech, that they had a great potential and to leverage both the site square footage, having only 12 units on a little over 2 acres, and the ability to take advantage of the federal government's RAD financing. They thought there was a significant opportunity to have a project of impact and thoughtfulness to ensure long-term affordability in a mixed income scenario. So as Pete said, and as expressed earlier by Carol, the Housing Authority is the current owner of the site, and the Housing Authority will remain 100% owner of the site moving forward. The development team is a three-way partnership, a tripod, if I may, that consists of myself, Ward Mungo Construction, and the Housing Authority. I will remind you that the last time I think we were before you, we were in the opposite side of the room, still asking for financing, for gap financing, but we were here for the notable Esau Jenkins project on Johns Island. And with your gracious generosity and contribution for gap financing, you actually helped us get over the hump. We closed on that financing at the top of the year, and Ward Mungo Construction and their team is about 35% complete. And there's nothing like seeing the first and second floor being framed. They're doing a phenomenal job. And just to brag a little bit more about our team and some of the demonstrative experience that we've got in Carolina, this month, Ward's team has just delivered for us as co-developers with the Housing Authority of the City of Columbia, South Carolina, the second phase of a $60 million project that consists of 285 units, half of which are family, and the other half are senior. Just an example of our experience working together and our demonstrated track record. So we're looking forward to doing more. This project will be operated by a third-party professional property manager. They've actually got a few properties and assets on the peninsula, I guess I should say, and they're deeply steeped with mixed income, both income restrictive and affordable, as well as market rate or conventional assets in the area. So that's the team. So here's the project. You've seen hopefully the renderings in the paper. We've had our share of FaceTime in front of the BAR. Catherine has done an exceptional job at Ward Mungo Construction of kind of guiding us through that layer. But as expressed earlier, there are 12 units that are existing on the property right now. Those units are actually vacant. The Housing Authority has a fairly robust and comprehensive relocation plan so everyone's out. Everyone's already been vacated, so we're just kind of waiting to pull together the gap financing. And they do have the first right to return to the 12 units. So when you see 100% replacement units, that means that that particular bedroom distribution and mix, 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, is actually coming back to the new project. It's a 77-unit deal. Again, multiple bedroom distributions, truly mixed income. So 100% of the replacement units, which is 12, will come back, as Pete said. Then there's an additional 40 that will be up to 60% of area median income. And then the remaining 25 will be set aside for workforce housing. And I've been reading the articles that you all have had in the Post and Courier this week, and I just kept getting more excited as I delved into them deeper about the need to allow people to have the ability to work closer to their jobs. So we hope to capture quite a few of the folks in the service industry as well. There'll be an on-site professional management office. The first floor, based on the way that we're structured and the way that project is designed, there's quite a bit of programming space for residents that we'll get into a little bit further. And there's also going to be a fitness room, and there'll be a computer lab area. There are resident amenities throughout the project. The beautiful, landscaped atrium will have various courtyards in the middle. And when we initially had started, we were looking at it as a LIHTC opportunity. We're going to do 4% LIHTC. The QAP, as you know, requires there to be outside active area. So we kept the tot lot. We did keep the tot lot, right? Right. We had two, but we had to drop one. Tot lots in the rear of the building, along with some active passive space. So just at a glance, just real quick, I think that everyone that's been around.
This is Gregory. Can I ask a question about
Yes,
the tax credits?
Yes, sir.
So we're going for the 4%, right?
No, we have pivoted from the 4% tax credits, and I can tell you why.
Okay.
You want me to tell you why?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had originally started off as looking at this as a 4% LIHTC deal with tax exempt bonds because of all the various reasons, but most of all being non-competitive and being able to couple them with the state tax credit. So that was in 2021, 2022 after we selected. The Housing Authority has multiple properties that are dispersed throughout the peninsula. The first iteration of the QAP, Qualified Allocation Plan, that we were faced with had limitations on what could be developed within certain proximity to the other. The Housing Authority has a very, as you know, robust redevelopment and revitalization strategy. And that would have basically set projects in a very linear fashion and caused us to have to wait a significant amount of time before we could actually develop. And initially, the first iteration of the QAP basically blocked anyone within a mile of another previously approved project from being funded or even applying. So we went through several different iterations, and then the state shut the LIHTC program down, and then the state came back and then changed the structure of the methodology of state tax credits. So in the interest of time, in the interest of being able to maintain some level of control in our destiny, the Housing Authority has chosen to issue their own bonds, essential function bonds, and maintain control of the process. So this is no longer a LIHTC deal.
Okay.
Councilmember Dudley.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. Appreciate the question. Excuse me. So obviously, we changed the financing piece to essential function bonds, which we are very comfortable with the ability to, based on the Housing Authority's rating and the ability to earn extra proceeds from guaranteed investment income on the deposited bonds. We've gone through the BAR a couple of times. The BAR was generous enough to provide us with a recent approval to change the building alignment so that it's a more simplified roof pattern and the windows and the window layout. Nothing that we did compromises the integrity of the design of the building. It's still going to be a handsome and beautiful building that provides the same amenities. But in moving from the LIHTC, where we lost the state tax credit equity and the federal equity, we had to be very creative in trying to come up with cost-saving measures that didn't compromise, again, the integrity of the design. I just learned this morning that the 2025 voucher rents have been published. So we're going to incorporate that into our current model to see if we can balance the budget even more. But we're currently running with the 2024 project-based voucher rents versus 2022 when we originally started this. And then obviously we have the request in that Gianna was very kind not to hang up on me when I first called her about it. Of $3 million that we wish to be in soft financing in a subordinate position. Because the project is a RAD project, the financing needs to be in place at a minimum of 18, but probably most likely 20-year repayment in a net cash flow position. We are continuously working with HUD. We're probably about 90 to 95% complete with our upload for our financing plan. And the goal is, I heard groundbreaking earlier, I got excited, thought you were talking about this project. The goal is to have closing in the first quarter of 2025 and a groundbreaking thereafter. So that's kind of the project at a glance and how we got to where we are. Just quickly, the financing strategy, again, we are moving forward with essential function bonds. We were awarded with the 1.75 from the Charleston County for their GOT financing. That comes through the ARPA program. We're currently negotiating the grant agreement for that. We have the bond proceeds in there because we're going to deploy them all at once and let them earn interest. And then the Housing Authority, in addition to contributing their land, as you can see, for $1 in acquisition, has also agreed to contribute $1 million of their capital funds. The $3 million gap, and then a portion of the fee that we would earn, it would be deferred and payable through cash flow or the success of the operation of the building. Obviously, as you know, you see these probably monthly. This is going to change probably 15 more times between now and the actual closing. But we still have a significant gap, and there's significant pressure points in this budget they're going to move where we could really use the $3 million in order for us to get started, get through the rest of the HUD process and move forward. The last slide I have, and I appreciate your patience, is just a simple milestone of what's kind of in front of us. Catherine and her team are really running through the regulatory process. The hope is that we've got building permits issued by December of this year. And then we move into, true closing fashion with a notice to proceed and a closing the first quarter of 2025. And Mr. Mayor, get you at that groundbreaking ceremony again in April. I think we were in Esau, your first as the mayor of the city. Happy to take any questions. Our entire team is here.
Mr. Chairman?
Do we have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Who's speaking?
This is the mayor.
Oh, okay, can see. All right.
Could you all provide prior to, well, first, I'd like to make a motion for approval, and I think this is a great use of funds from the Cooper River Bridge TIF to go towards affordable housing, and I think it's an appropriate expenditure. The one question I do have after the motion I've made for approval is prior to meeting with council where this would be discussed, if we could get more detail on the specifics related to the construction costs and related expenses and development expenses. I'd just like to be in the weeds a little bit more and understand where the costs are shaking out.
Absolutely. I mean, we just rolled it up for presentation purposes, but you can have the entire Division 16 of construction cost expenses as well as the exploded development uses. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Parker, see your hands up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for the presentation. Take me back. So what were the total number of units?
77.
77. Okay. And I believe you said 60% are going to be AMI and 40% workforce. So if I'm understanding that correctly, then 60% will be at 80% AMI and 40% will be at 120.
No.
Well, there'll be, I can do the percentages real quick, but 25 of the units will be up to 120%.
Right. Okay.
Right. Once they're actually set. And then the balance of the units will be 60% or below, with 12 of those units being set aside for replacement units for public housing.
Okay. Thank you.
As RAD.
Okay. Thank you. And on this project, I think I got my answer from your previous list, but so the city has not contributed anything to this project thus far?
Not far, no, not at this point.
And just my final question, which the mayor sort of answered. So from a budget standpoint, this funding would be coming from the Cooper River TIF?
To be determined on that, but it's up for council to determine, but I think that would be an appropriate place for it to come from.
And what's the amount in there currently?
There's currently $30 million of cash available, plus another $38 million in bondable revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Before we, because I haven't have a second on that yet.
Second.
Okay, have a second. I want to say that the 275 Hugie Street, I know it very well because it's right down the street from me, but I lived in that complex when it was first built. And they asked me to move in there to keep it straight for a year. And I stayed in there in the year when it was built, just to try to keep it straight for a while. So, because it was new, it was part of the when the HUD office had given the housing authority the money and it was doing the scattered sites. And that was part of the scattered sites at the time. So I know it well. And no, I agree with the doing the housing. I just wanted to make sure, and I mentioned to Mr. Mayor and to Mr. Nixon, I wasn't stopping the project, but I want to make sure that we didn't wipe out the money for the Cooper River TIF. That's what I was thinking more about at the time, to make sure that we still going to have these money to do for the east side that we, plan to do, and that was mentioned prior to all this. So that was only my dilemma on it. So since I found out with the money that we have in the TIF left, make sure that we still do what we need to do for when the Cooper River Bridge TIF was really voted on and started, So I don't have really a problem with this. So I would like to see this area, because this area is going to be improved a lot, even with those housing there and with the other housing that the housing authority have on that same on Hughes Street. I know one time we also was talking about revitalizing Hughes Street, so we're going to have to get back with that on a later date and see how we're going to do that also. So we have
You're talking about the sidewalks?
The sidewalks and they were talking, I had meetings with the Greater Refuge Church. At one time, we were talking about all this and beautifying that area, Hughes Street from King Street all the way down to Morrison Drive. So we have to get back with that to see, but they had to get some properties from Greater Refuge Church. And I don't know if how that came through. I had a meeting with them and a couple of years ago, a year or 2 years ago. So all those things we have to work in to see if that's still going to be a part of it, if that's going to take place. I said, Councilwoman Parker, before I call for the question.
I did. Just one follow-up question, if you don't mind. And I'm pretty sure I've asked Ms. Johnson this question multiple times, but so out of those 25 units, tell me, what is the 120 AMI currently? My question leading to, I'm just curious if our city workforce, I'm just wondering where they fall into that.
Based on
60%.
Go ahead, Councilmember Gregory.
Most of will be at the 60% level, I would imagine.
Yes, correct. But he said, "Want to know what's the higher?"
So I believe you asked what the area median income was at 120. I believe it's at approximately 100,000 based on a family of 4. And I'm glad to forward that information as well, Councilwoman.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell me the 60% real quick?
I can't. I don't recall those. I don't have those numbers in my.
I think
Ray
it's about
has those
40.
with him though.
I think it's about 45, 50.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
It's Rebecca. I have the chart in front of me if you need
Okay.
that.
And you can-
60%.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
60% for a family of 4 is $63,060.
That's exactly correct. And for a family of for a 2-bedroom, it's $54,60, and for a 1-bedroom, $44,160.
Would you mind sending that to me?
Sure thing.
Okay. Thank you. That'll help in our next committee. But okay, just one last question. I think legal's here. This may or may not be allowed, but I just want to double check. So as far as the workforce housing and the city of Charleston's investment here, would city or county employees, do they, where do they rank when trying to get, be able to accept one of these units?
I know Gianna can answer this question because I know that we do have city employees that are currently living in affordable units, but I'll let Gianna speak to that.
Sure. Typically, Councilwoman Parker, these are marketed across the board, and usually it's first come, first served, meaning they have to qualify naturally to be able to secure a unit within the development. Unless council approves some level of these units being available specifically for that, we try to make sure that we are affirmatively marketing these units simply because we want to always be cognizant of fair housing laws and making sure everyone has the same opportunity.
Okay, perfect. That was kind of my question. I just didn't know. Again, I'm new to this, but I didn't know if our city workforce, how that can work. But okay, thank you.
Just to follow.
Okay,
with Ms. Shaw Johnson. And as it relates to implementing the affirmative marketing, we affirmative market to those least likely to apply still?
So council member, we market to everyone. Often there are additional strategies put forward to those who are more difficult to reach. And so when we talk affirmatively marketing, there are additional strategies that are deployed for those who may not see a newspaper ad. And the Housing Authority is very familiar with that. So there are additional flyers and other measures that are put forward in order to ensure that those persons at the various income levels are reached and they know that the opportunity exists.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? If not, Councilman McBride, I think you have a question. You have your hand.
Yeah, sorry, just a general comment. Number one, this is looks like a beautiful plan development. It looks really good and it's needed. This is more of a general comment, not about this briefing specifically, but we've had the water plan brief a while back, a few weeks ago, which is a very good comprehensive brief. We had the Bloomberg brief on affordable housing, or making housing more affordable across the board, and then this one as well. All good briefs. I just want to point out that it would be good for me, and I think for the constituents, to hear other facets of these briefs, which are kind of stovepiped into a specific development or a specific plan, whether it's flooding, how it impacts other aspects of the priorities in the city, such as traffic, and like this one, how does it impact, or does it impact flooding, or water, stormwater runoff, that kind of thing? How does it impact traffic? And I know that's not the purpose of the brief, but I just think that a lot of people, at least in my district, the number one issue that they have is traffic. And when any development is talked about any reason, even if it's for a very good purpose, when not a word is mentioned about traffic. I'm not talking about this one, it's not my district. I'm just saying, Johns Island, James Island, where I am, just to hear someone just mention that's been considered would be helpful. And it's also instructive to me personally, and probably to the other council members, to hear that those other aspects of what we're talking about, how it impacts those other aspects. I could learn from that and hear that it's been considered, and the constituents, the public, hears that it's considered.
Sure.
So I just want to point that out.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman, this is the mayor.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's a good point, Councilman McBride. All that information is part of the development process. Traffic studies are required, as well as obviously stormwater calculations. So I think making that information available makes a lot of sense and would be easy to do. And just in terms of a project like this, high level with regards to a narrative to any constituency, one of the real benefits of affordable housing is keeping people closer to job centers, particularly lower income people, that prevent them from being on the roads. So it has a compounding effect for sure, and figuring out ways to translate that and convey that to the general population, I think will be an important part of preventing the angst and concern about much needed affordable housing, not just on the peninsula, but really across the entire city.
Any other questions? Well, I'm gonna tell you, but the traffic's gonna be there one way or the other. And that's something we're gonna have to work on and have to live with, because it's gonna be here. I can see it already coming. But we still have to move on. I see Councilman Appel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I had a question for the developer's representative. And before I ask the question, I just want to state you're in a safe place here in the committee. You can speak honestly about what I'm about to ask you. This project is moving forward, and we're here to help you out with it. But I've got questions about the experience you went through navigating the city's development review process generally, and the city's architectural review process specifically. I've heard anecdotes over the years about the cost and delay that the BAR process entails. And I think that's a concern that we have at the city generally, but it's an even more heightened and pronounced concern when we're talking about applying that process and those standards to projects like this. Because here you have a project that doesn't really have a whole lot of room for error financially. And when you come to the city requesting, millions of dollars of additional funding, the question that jumps into my mind is how much has the city cost you guys in terms of the delay and other complications associated with our development review process? In other words, maybe we're shooting our own our own foot, in other words. So, I know some of this stuff is sensitive. We want to make sure things look good in the city of Charleston, but I think there's a lot of interest right now in making sure we get the process right. And I think as a committee, it would benefit us to understand the specific experience that developers have gone through in these affordable housing cases, especially. So if you could just make some comments about that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Look, Councilman Appel, certainly appreciate you opening the floor to that discussion. I first off second that, and this is Ward Mungo, and again, very appreciative of the opportunity to be able to be here and have this discussion. But I think we really have to first and foremost, focus on what makes Charleston Charleston, and beautiful architecture is one of those things. But at what expense to affordable housing are we going to have that? And I think throughout this process, especially in the downtown area, we have found that one of the biggest challenges is what really is the goal? What is the stated goal here? And we have found that the subjectivity of the bodies is something that adds significant time to the development. And I think now one of the things that we've seen, not just in affordable, but market rate development, is that it is not the exception, rather the norm, to have multiple visits in front of the same body. And I would really, from the experience of going through this on both Esau Jenkins Village and 275 UG Street, there really needs to be a clear set of guidelines, architectural guidelines that are agreed upon. Now, I think that there does need to be a process in which these are reviewed, but the hard questions need to be asked throughout this process. And Councilman Appel, I'm certainly, while we don't have a hard number as to what that is today, I would certainly open up for us to have a further discussion about what that looks like, and we will be happy to be a resource because we do want to give you accurate information as far as what that does look like. That's it. Thank you. And, I know Catherine wanted to answer a question that we heard earlier about the traffic, just to ease some of the concerns from that front as well. Thank you.
Hey y'all, Catherine here. I just wanted to reiterate what the mayor said. We do have a traffic study. We also have stormwater studies. We're using a specific Coltech system that our engineer has recommended, and we're also happy to meet with anybody one-on-one and literally share those with you. I understand the public sentiment is, oh, they're doing what they can get away with. There's a building being built near my home, and I feel the same way, even though I logically know that we are all required to meet the same set of standards. So again, happy to share the traffic study, happy to share our stormwater calculations, and happy to sit down or walk the site with anybody who has questions on that. I'm also going to reiterate two things. One that Ward said, and to answer your question, Ross, we have had, in my time at the city, and just in the last year, I've had the opportunity to sit down with so many city staff members, Stephanie Hanley on the affordable housing side, and the level of help and willingness to help that we have received in the last year has gone above and beyond what I've experienced in the last decade. So I do want to pay those compliments because this is a hard job and it's sometimes not fun. On top of that, I also want to share that we've had a lot of conversations inside, outside, and with the Urban Land Institute on affordable housing standards and what it means to keep the material of Charleston in the historic fabric appropriate, while also, to answer what your question is, allowing us to build these without constantly asking you for more money. And that's a conversation we would be happy to continue having. Our architect, Bello Garris, is also happy to continue discussing what it looks like specifically down to those materials in windows, siding, et cetera. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, in addition to the technical standards like traffic, transportation, et cetera, there are other things that you also consider depending upon the type of housing that you're going to provide. I think you also look and see where grocery stores are. You look and see where schools are if it's a family project and development. So in addition to the technical stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you're looking at a site and when you're determining what you're going to put there, you also put into your formula those social kinds of issues that need to be considered to make it a successful site.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Oh, Councilwoman Parker?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. What about parking spaces? That was one of my other questions. What about parking?
Yeah, that's on site.
I mean, all that is a part of what the city provides. I don't know what it is, but I mean, depending upon the units and blah, 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 there are a number of car spaces that would need to be available. I think that all that's cooked into the mix. Exactly what they are for this specific project, I'm not sure.
There are exactly 65 spaces.
Okay.
65 spaces, Councilman Parker.
Okay, and does each unit get a designation if that's not enough?
Just to make sure that I'm clear on your question, do you mean does each unit get X number reserved, or are we marking those parking spaces? What's the question?
Yes, so 75 units and 65 parking spaces. I assume that's what's allowed in the city, but how do they get marketed to each unit?
I think it's.
I'm sorry. They're free and they're open and they're first come.
Oh, it's first come, first serve.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So most affordable housing projects, just in general, even though this is mixed income, there are certain resident amenities that you're not allowed to incorporate into a fee based on affordability, because the affordability factor takes into account everything that the resident have to pay. So you can't charge for laundry, you can't charge for storage lockers, you can't charge for fitness room access, you can't charge for dog park or dog washing or parking. So it is free, open space, first come, first serve.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion. It was already approved. So all in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Opposes? Ayes have it. We're moving right along. Thank you very much for your presentation. So we're going down to item number 3I, which is a presentation consideration of funding to support Connington Avenue development developers.
Chairman Mitchell, Mayor, and members of the City Committee of City Council, good afternoon. So what you have before you is a request from Conifer Developers. As you all may recall, back in 2023, we awarded a contract to this organization who were the successful bidder on a request for proposals that the city released, and they have been actively engaged in planning this site, including number of units, looking at all parking requirements, stormwater requirements. This is a city-owned site, and the city has transferred or will transfer via an option to lease and a ground lease this site to the individuals. What they have been working on over the last several years is the funding mechanism for it. I will remind members of council that the city of Charleston committed $1.8 million to this site in ARPA funds that the Department of Housing and Community Development received directly, and then an additional $400,000 in Home Investment Partnership Program funds. They have an additional request in light of some of the challenges encountered with the state low-income housing tax credit. And I'm going to ask Paul Conifer, who is with the development team, to come forward and share additional information with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time today. I'm Paul Marfione. I'm a Vice President of Development with Conifer. Conifer is approaching 50 years in age. We are a full-service real estate firm, own, manage, develop, and build affordable housing up and down the East Coast. We, over the past couple of years, have been tasked with expanding into the Southeast. And Charleston was one of our first stops. In doing so, we kind of stole Matt Ojala, sorry, Gianna. But we also were aware of the Cunningston Avenue site and the RFP that was released. So we applied, and as Gianna said, we were successful in bidding on it. Where we weren't really successful was in the bond application that we submitted last year. So with the new rules that SC Housing came out with for their 4% application, 4% bond applications were ranked solely on the amount of state tax credits you were asking for based on per unit and per heated square footage. So when you took the 30 applications that went in, anything for new construction or preservation, they were all lumped into one. And as you can imagine, a new construction deal in Charleston was going to rank near the bottom just because of the cost of construction and just the high interest rates that, you know, everyone's experiencing everywhere. So one of the first things that we wanted to do was talk with the city and see if we can get our option to ground lease the property extended. We were successful in a couple months ago, and I want to thank the city for their help with that and our partners at PCAP. So what we've done to date in designing the building is we've worked incredibly hard with our architects and LS3P Architecture and our civil engineers at Forsberg Engineering. So we've been able to keep 99 units of affordable housing of an average income of 54% of the AMI. So it's a deep affordability still with incomes ranging from 30% to 80% of the AMI. We were able to reduce the building by about 17,000 square feet. So we think that considerably raises us in the ranking for next year. The downside of that is there were two other pots of funding that kind of disappeared. We had, and it's in this letter that should be part of the package that you guys received. SC Home ARPA funds in the amount of $2.3 million. Those are no longer available if you're submitting under the 4% tax exempt bond round. And then we also were in the midst of applying for Charleston County Home ARPA funds, which we missed out on just because of the fact that they have to be used by the end of this year, which we weren't going to be able to do. So all of that kind of commingled into one cloud. We ended up reducing our costs, but also reducing some of the sources that are available. So where we've ended up in our financing gap is $800,000. And that is the request that we're putting into the city as we get ready to submit our application to SC Housing next week.
That's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah. The $1 million from Charleston County not being able to be spent this year, can that be used on anything, or does it have to be on hard costs?
We were told that it could be used on hard costs or soft costs, but the deal had to be closed in order for it to happen on construction.
So you had to have your loan closed.
Correct.
I have another question.
Yes, go ahead.
So the reduction, as I understand it, the previous costs were anticipated to be 43 million, and now we're at 36 million. And that's because you've reduced the size of the project by 17,000 square feet, but not reduced the number of units.
Correct.
And then one of the things that I am curious by the fee, the development fee on a more expensive project was lower than, you basically went from a 7% fee to a 10% fee.
Sure. So that's a great question. So we submitted the application, and SC Housing has a maximum and a minimum dollar per dollar raise that you can get generated from the tax credits. So their maximum is, okay, we'll let a bank come in and buy your tax credits for 88 cents on the dollar. We were above that in our application. And when you do that, they automatically increase your deferred fee. So we did leave room for that, but it bumped our deal to being feasible because of that. With this, we've sized it so we know that we're going to be, if they come back, and this is, I hate to say it, this is SC Housing, if they come back and try and ding us on another way, we have room for that developer fee to go up and not be disqualified as a financially infeasible deal.
But you're talking about deferred fee. I'm talking, but you would be, it looks like in the sources and uses you provided.
Oh, you're talking about developer fee in total. I'm sorry. Yes, so the QAP this year from SC Housing has increased it, I think from, it was what, 22,000 a unit to now it's at 23,000 a unit. So us being developers.
But I mean, just, I gotta say it. I mean, you know, it's $400,000 higher fee, but you're asking for 800. So you could probably go with the original development fee and ask for 400,000.
We could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just asking for a friend.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Parker has her hand up.
Councilman Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, so the city owns the land, right? If I heard correct. And then we've already contributed 1.5, 400, and then the ask today is 800. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, ma'am. We have committed. We haven't actually transferred anything because the property is not yet under construction. But essentially, the additional request from this organization is $800,000. Yes, ma'am. So is that correct? Did I say that right?
And where would the 800 be coming from, Mr. Mayor?
That's for council to determine. This will be part of this, unlike the previous submittal, would not be eligible for the Cooper River Bridge TIF. So we would have to figure out where we would be able to come up with this funding. So, you know, I can say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. And just a quick follow-up question. How many units?
Was 99.
How many? Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, you know, we need affordable housing. There's no question about it. I want to support this. We do need to figure out where, as a council and as a city, where this funding might be able to come from. We're going through the budget process now. We have a little bit of time, given that we've granted the extension. So I would move, with support of this, I would move to defer it and work through a few more details with the developer and also figure out where options are to present to council in this committee for potential funding sources in light of the fact that we're going through the budget process right now. I think it's a little premature to commit to this when we don't know where the funding source would be. And I have a few additional questions that I'd like to work with them on and present to this committee.
So Mayor and Chairman Mitchell, as well as other members of the committee, the application to state housing is due at the end of this month. We, in submitting the pro-housing grant to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, included this project in that proposal. So I think we included it at $1 million in the pro-housing grant. We are supposed to know the results of that naturally before the end of the year. But of course, that's a grant process that is competitive. There is also a possible source of funds through the fee in lieu dollars that we collect from our MU2 zoning ordinance that is collected. But that is so they are under the gun, if you will. If they don't submit in October, then they would have to look at another application next year. So it would essentially delay this project moving forward.
There's one, so for clarity, there's one submittal a year to the state?
For 4%, it is October, and then there's a 9% submittal next March, April. So the dynamics change just a little bit between 4% and 9%. But yeah, those are.
Well, again, I've made the motion to defer. I understand that. I feel, I want to support this, but not knowing where the funding's coming from, at least getting clarity from BFRC on the fee in lieu fee in lieu with workforce housing would be my recommendation.
Mayor, would you repeat that? Because you broke up a little bit.
Yeah, I would move for deferment. This is something that we could, if it works out financially, that we can find potential sources we can present at council, because of the timing being at the end of this month or 10 days away. But given the fact that we do not have a dedicated source defined for where this money will come from, 800,000, I think it's only prudent that we defer it. We can work with the developer on the land and timing because we already own it. So there's no real gun to our head except for the submittal to South Carolina. So that would be my motion, is to defer.
You all heard the motion. Is there a second?
This is my third time second.
Okay, it was moving second. Any other questions? My question is that I know we was working on this a long time, and this was approved when we had the ribbon cutting and the over there on Connington Avenue. And I don't want to see this go away, lose because of we can't find the funding, and we funding so many other different things. And I just got a little problem with it, with that respect, because this was under another administration, and so I'm looking at this very carefully, which way I'm going to go with this. So,
question, Mr. Chairman, but so we have no program income, Ms. Shaw Johnson. Do we have any hotels coming online that we get fee in lieu from? I'm sure you've already exhausted most, if not all, the sources. I may just be asking redundant questions. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, Councilmember Greger, we do have program income, but not at the level required here. We did receive approximately 30 days ago a deposit from a project under our fee in lieu account that is very close to the amount that's being requested here. And so we essentially, the mayor wants confirmation of that, and we can certainly provide that by the time council meets next week, so that you're aware that that exists. And as I indicated, although we recently submitted the housing pro grant that council approved on the 15th of this month, we also allocated a dollar amount in that proposal for this particular development as well. That is not yet awarded, but again, we do have some funding in fee in lieu that could address what is being requested. Thank you.
Well, it's Mr. Mayor, it sounds like we have the money.
That's what I'm saying.
Which is it? I mean,
I don't know. That's the first I've heard of it. So what I would do then, I'll amend my motion to approve $400,000 that could come from this, provided we have the funding from fee in lieu, and ask the developer to keep their original development fee, which would make up the additional $400,000 at $800,000. So I'd be willing to do that, providing this new information that I'm just hearing too, that we do have potential funding sources, even though we don't know if it's completely enough for 800. So my amended motion would be to approve a $400,000 grant, subject to confirmation that the funding is there, and that how the difference would be made up, I would recommend to the developer they go back to their original development fee.
Well, can we iron that out now? Whether or not they will agree to that, whether or not the numbers work for them? I mean,
The developer's prepared to speak on that.
Yes, we got to.
Yeah, it wouldn't be an issue for us.
sounds like it's a go, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, if they
Like
satisfied,
when a good plan comes together.
Yes, it does.
as long as they're satisfied with it, because I don't want to see this go under the
I second the motion.
Okay, it was moving second. I just want to see it go under the because I was working on this for a while, and when we had the ribbon cutting, and the and everything else up on Cunnington Avenue, I don't want to see this happen, and get this rolling. Okay, all in favor, vote by saying aye, if there's no other questions.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat the motion again? What's the motion on the floor, please?
I'm happy to do it, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
This committee approved $400,000 provided by council meeting with the condition that we have confirmation of funds through the fee in lieu program as represented by community development. And that the developer would forego $400,000 of their fee as defined in the sources and uses provided, which puts them back at their original fee that was presented on the previous budget.
Second.
Councilwoman Parker, did you hear it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, it was moving second. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Opposes? Ayes have it. So
Thank you.
we're moving right along. One more. Let's see if I can get this computer working right now. We had amendment that was placed on the agenda, which was an ordinance certifying 41 Cooper Street as an abandoned building pursuant to South Carolina Abandoned Building Revitalization Act of 2013.
Move for approval.
Okay,
Second.
Was moving second. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposes? Ayes have it. So we have anything else to bring before the committee before we stand adjourned?
Move for adjournment.
Second.